Beautiful day where you live? Isn't it funny how that question really depends on what you think is a beautiful day, doesn't it? So some people, when they think of a beautiful day, they think of sunshine and clouds, and they wouldn't like rain. I actually love rainy days. So for me, a beautiful day would be a rainy day or a snowy day, where for somebody else that might be a terrible one. We all have different perspectives on things. All right. Anybody have any questions for me? No. All right. Let's begin. We have, I hope, a fun class today. Jaslyn, you like windy days? Yeah, me too. Me too. Unless I'm trying to, go somewhere and I've just gotten dressed and done my hair and all that. All right. Let me share my screen with you guys. All right. Let me know if you cannot see that. That's a zoology with the flapping bird. So the bird is there because this week we are beginning the lesson on birds. So we started with the simplest of all life forms, the sponges, and we're working our way up now to the more complex ones. So after birds, of course, comes mammals, and we'll spend 3 weeks on animals. Not because on mammals, not because mammals are most plentiful. Remember, the most plentiful are the arthropods, right? Arthropods are like, almost all the animals on Earth are arthropods, but we spend more time on mammals because they're the ones that we know the best. They're the ones that we interact with in our life. And of course, we're mammals. So learning about them helps us to learn about us. So this week we start birds. And as you guys are going through these lessons, I want you to focus on being aware of the birds around your community. Notice the birds that are in your yard. Notice how they walk, what they look like, what their behavior is, what their color patterns are. Notice birds that come and birds that go. So in order to identify birds, there are certain characteristics that we use, certain ways that we figure out what kind of bird it is. And that might be something fun for you to do too. Maybe get a bird identification book from the library and try to identify birds that you might see in your area. Just a fun thing to do. A lot of people are bird watchers. Are any of you guys bird watchers or know anyone who is? People who go out like into the woods just to find birds. It's kind of a fun hobby. Svenja.
I do bird watching sometimes.
That's pretty cool. So yeah, you know that it can be kind of a fun hobby to do. All right, so I want to start today. Of course, we'll start with a couple of cartoons and jokes. And then we're going to look at some of the ways that we can identify birds. So here's our first cartoon. Well, hold it until we find a parked car. Sadly, it does seem like they do that, doesn't it? All right, when should you buy a bird? When it's cheap. Why did the bird get a ticket? Because it broke the law of gravity. How about this one? The duck was about to cross the road when the chicken looked at him and said, "Don't do it, man. You'll never hear the end of it." All right. Why did the chicken cross the playground? Did the chicken cross the playground? To get to the other side. And how do chickens get strong? They exercise. All right. Hardly anybody's smiling. Are these especially bad today? All right. One more. Why couldn't the chicken find her egg? Because she mislaid it. All right. Just a heads up for you guys for the next couple weeks. So next week, we're going to have a guest speaker. This is him right here. His name is Leon, and he is a crested gecko, and he's coming to class next week. He'll tell us all about what it's like to be a crested gecko. He'll actually be speaking through the voice of his owner. She'll tell us what it's like to have a crested gecko, but he's kind of a cute little guy. And then the week after that, we're going to do this chicken foot dissection. Now, I sent a message last week. If you didn't get it, please check your Canvas inbox for that. It's always better if you can actually do these things along with me. If you can't get a chicken foot, or your mom won't let you have it in the house, or you're too grossed out by it, that's fine. You can just observe. But you will learn a lot about the way muscles attach to bones, the tendons we call them, if you can actually do the chicken foot dissection. So we will talk more about that, how they work when we are doing before we do the dissection. And I will send you another reminder at the end of this week, and then I will send you the full list of supplies next week that you need to have, because you need more than just the chicken foot. You need a couple of other things too. All right, anybody have any questions about the next couple weeks, what's coming up? All right, let's talk about identifying birds, and then we're going to do a case study about a little eagle. So when we're talking about identifying birds, there are a couple of ways that we do that. Basically, the first is to become familiar with things about the birds, the color, the general shape of them, the way that they behave. And then the second way is by knowing what kinds of birds you're likely to see in your area at this time of year. So if you live somewhere where you're not likely to see a particular kind of bird, even if you think that's what it is, it's probably not it. That's probably not. Let me check here. Okay. So bird watchers can identify many different species just from a quick look at them. So there's 4 key patterns that we use: size and shape, color, behavior, and then habitat. So looking at the size and the shape. Now, the combination of the size and shape of a bird, that's really a powerful tool to use to identify a bird. So you might like looking at them because they're so bright and colorful. But when it comes to identifying them, the first thing you're going to look at is the size and the shape. So basically, you'll start by looking at what's called the silhouette of a bird. So a silhouette is the black outline. This is a silhouette right here. We can't tell anything about the color. We can't see the feathers on it. We're just looking at the blackened outline filled in of this bird. And we can notice some telltale parts just by looking at the silhouette. Look at the beak. Look at the legs. Look at the tail. So you can pretty quickly tell a lot about a bird's proportions, its posture, which we'll talk about in a minute, and you can rule out a lot of birds. Like, is anybody going to confuse that with a hummingbird? No, very different. This one is a great blue heron. So look at the long legs that it has. Look at the elegant S-shaped neck on this blue heron. You're not going to see that on a robin. So that will help you to make that identification. Here is a western meadowlark. It's plumper than the heron is. And it's got shorter legs and definitely a shorter beak and neck. This one is an American tree sparrow. Now they're about the same size as a warbler, but they're plumper and their bills are shorter. This is a red-winged blackbird. Can't see the red wings on a silhouette, but the silhouette tells us a lot about this kind of bird. This is a barn swallow. This one is a blue jay. This one is an American robin. So this is common in backyards, but it's only common certain times of the year. During the winter months, if you live somewhere that it gets cold, like I do, the robins fly away and they come back in the spring. So let's look at the shape of a couple of birds. Anybody know what kind of bird that is? How about if I put the picture next to it? This is called a house finch. This is a house finch. So you can see how the silhouette shows us a lot about what the bird looks like. This one, anybody know what that? Oh, it says it right there. That's a northern cardinal. So look at that cardinal. Beautiful. You can tell by the cardinal, it's got this feathery spike on the top of its head. That's really beautiful. How about this one? Anybody recognize that?
Pigeon.
Yeah, that's a pigeon. Also called a rock dove. Yeah, so isn't that fun? I don't know how they got the word pigeon. I think rock dove sounds much more beautiful. But pigeons are gorgeous birds. They're really beautiful and they make a really nice sound. But they get a bad name because they like living in cities and they like causing trouble to people who live in the city. One thing that they do is they can, their droppings can be a big mess. Now this one right here, this is a cattle egret. Now a cattle egret, there it is right here. There's a picture of it. They're common in Hawaii. They actually cause some problems in Hawaii. So I'm not gonna find one of those in Pennsylvania. Jaslyn.
I just wanted to say something that it's not really about these kinds of birds, but it does have to do with like one time with birds. Was that a lot of time in the past I've seen peacocks in person. It's the fact that they're like very beautiful birds or something, but then it's the fact that the noise they make is really, really obnoxious and like loud.
Yes, yes, that's absolutely true. Everybody
The
likes to
sound
look
really
at a
doesn't
peacock.
fit
Nobody wants
with
to
it.
have them living in their yard. Yeah, that's a good point. All
Yeah.
right, so somebody talk. Okay, so size, we looked at shape. Now let's look at size. That's a little bit trickier because you never really know how far away a bird is or how big something that it's sitting next to really is. Like just look at me in the screen right here. You know, I look a lot bigger from here than I do when I'm way back here, right? So same is true with the bird. If it's way far away, it's gonna look like it's a lot smaller. Sometimes though, you can compare a bird that you're looking at one that you know pretty well. So think about if you know what a pigeon looks like, is this bird bigger than a pigeon or is it smaller than a pigeon? Paul, where did you live that you had peacocks in your yard? That's very cool. I don't know if you can hear me. Jaslyn.
Sorry, I just wanted to quickly say the fact that one of my neighbors actually has peacocks. Like
Oh,
they have
fun.
like pet peacocks in their yard. I'm not lying, it's crazy. They're so
San Pedro.
loud, you can hear
All
them in
right,
the
that's
morning.
very cool. So you can compare it to a peacock. Is it bigger than a peacock or smaller? You can also look at the size and shape of the parts. Like how does the head size compare to the wing size or the tail size or the legs? So that's a way that you can use size and shape together. Now the next thing that we look at is the color pattern. So as soon as you spot a bird, take in the overall color that you see. Notice the main color. Notice anywhere that there would be a different color. So sometimes all you need in order to start your identification of a bird is the color. You're not going to see this red crested cardinal and mistake it for a rock dove. This red crest that it has right here gives it away. Now, sometimes even if you just see it fly by, you can identify it by the color. If you see this one fly by, you're not going to think that it's a spoonbill, right? So that's really helpful, those color patterns. Notice where it's light and where it's dark, where the markings are bold and where the markings are a little more subtle. Where is their bright color and where is their more of a shadowy color? So let's take a look at some behaviors next, because behavior is the next one. So one we talked about already, we mentioned the posture of a bird. Posture is sort of how you present yourself. Like think about yourself. When you're real happy, you know, your posture's probably pretty cheerful, but when you're sad, you know, we tend to slump a little bit, our head drops a little bit. The same is true with animals. You can tell a lot about an animal by its posture. And just look at these birds. Look at the ones that are leaning forward. These just like look like they're ready for trouble, don't they? They're getting ready to yell at somebody there. What about sitting upright? Look at this one. This one's sitting very upright compared to this one. The cardinal here just really looks majestic. Beautiful. And this one, that is a very bold bird. That's not meek. That's not a shy bird that just hides in the bushes. That one's going after its prey. You can also look at the way they move. When it's on a branch, does it bounce along the branch or does it simply fly from one branch to another? Does it flutter when it arrives? Does it skid in for a landing like a duck on a pond? No, does it soar through the air or does it dart around as it goes? And what about eating? What does it eat? Does it catch its food in the air or does it land on the ground and look for its dinner on the ground? Svenja.
The red one also looks a little bit nervous because it's looking upward.
Yeah, maybe try and do look for predators up in the sky. Definite possibility. And we can look at the flocking patterns too. Some birds, remember that not all birds flock with other birds. Some of them do, but not all of them. So some of them will only flock with others when they're migrating or when they're in the nesting part of the year. And then when they're not, they just relax and they don't stay with other birds. So learning, like, does your bird flock or not? Does it hang out with other birds can be an issue. So these right here, these are barn swallows. We talked about the cardinal already. This one, anybody know what kind of bird this is in the middle there? Yeah, you're right, Jasmine. That's a falcon getting ready to get its dinner, right? And look at those claws. And this one right here is a crow. And we have the common robin right there. So here's that robin again. Now, habitat is the fourth way that we identify birds. So I live in Pennsylvania. So if I see a bird that looks like this one, I know it's not a Hawaiian stilt. There are no Hawaiian stilts in the wild in Pennsylvania, but there are lots of robins. But guess what? If I lived in Hawaii and I saw a bird that looked like this, I know it can't be a robin because there aren't any robins that live in Hawaii. So you have to keep an eye on the kind of birds that are in your area as well as the time of year. Because like I said, some birds will migrate away. So those are the four ways. And I want you guys to try as you're going through this lesson to identify some birds, to look for some things, so some birds that live in your area. All right. Next, we are going to talk about the birds of prey. So when you get to this section in the book Animal, you'll notice that I made it optional for you to read about birds of prey because I want to talk about them in this live class. We're going to talk about birds of prey. We're going to really focus on eagles and hawks, and especially eagles, because we're going to do a little case study at the end after we've talked about the eagles. So birds of prey, what do I mean when I say birds of prey? Sonia.
Birds that hunt other animals.
Yeah, very good, very good. They are carnivores. They eat other animals. So the word raptor is a Latin word that means to grab or to seize. So these are birds that will grab or seize other animals, and they use powerful talons and sharp beaks in order to catch and eat their prey or to defend themselves. So can anybody name any raptors, any birds of prey? Abigail.
Owl.
Owl, yeah. Yep. Lydia.
Eagle.
Eagles. Bastion.
Falcons.
Falcons. Benya.
I was gonna say the same thing.
Mila.
Pigeons?
Pigeons are not birds of prey.
Oh, okay.
They are kind of a bird, but they don't have those powerful talons. They don't fly through the air and eat other birds or other animals. They tend to be more seed eaters. Jaslyn.
Vultures.
Vultures. Yep. Evie.
I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah. All right, Ruby, you got another one?
Hawks?
Hawks. Yeah, you guys are getting almost all of them here. So eagles, hawks, kites, falcon, vultures, and owls. Those are just some. There's a lot more different kinds. So like I said, what we're going to focus on today are hawks and eagles. So hawks and eagles are both diurnal. What does diurnal mean? Abigail.
Awake and during the day.
Yes, they're awake during the day as opposed to being nocturnal, which is awake at night. So an owl is nocturnal. A hawk and an eagle are both going to be diurnal. They're active. They hunt during the day, and they hunt and eat many different kinds of animals. Now, there's a lot of things that are common between an eagle and a hawk, but there are a few things that make them different from one another. Usually eagles are bigger and they're usually stronger than hawks. And take a look at the beak there. So eagles usually have a yellowish beak or a light colored beak, where hawks usually have a dark colored one. Not always, but usually. Hawks often have a light colored belly. So look at the belly there of those, the eagle and the hawk. Hawks have a lighter colored one. Eagles tend to have a darker color one. Eagles tend to fly and hunt their prey in the air, and then they will carry it to a branch where they'll eat it. Hawks, on the other hand, they tend to hide They're stealth predators. So they will hide in the trees until prey comes. So once that prey comes, then they rapidly leave their perch and they attack using the element of surprise. So if any of you guys have a little dog, like I have a little dog, I have to be careful. There are hawks in the trees around my neighborhood. So I can't let her out by herself because she would be a tasty morsel for a hawk that was hiding in a tree somewhere. Where an eagle, you tend to see them. They fly through the air looking for their prey. Hawks have pretty sharp talons. You can see them right here, sharp talons. They have a curved bill and they have very muscular legs. So they use that sharp bill for tearing and biting their prey. They're what's called an opportunistic feeder. Anybody know what opportunistic means? What is an opportunistic feeder? Lydia.
Like if they can eat it, then they would.
Basically, they'll eat whatever's around, whatever's available. So hawks mostly eat frogs and snakes and squirrels, rabbits and smaller birds, but whatever's there, whatever they can hunt and get, they'll eat. And they mate for life. So they usually live about 15 to 20 years in the wild. Anybody know what kind of hawk that is in the picture? Any of the bird lovers? Red-tailed hawks near your home, that's cool. Abigail, what do you think?
Red-tailed hawk.
No, it is not a red-tailed hawk. Looks a lot like it. This one actually is called a Harris hawk. Yeah, no reason you should know that. I just didn't know if you did. Now, eagles, of course. Let's focus in on eagles now. So you guys know that the bald eagle is the symbol of the United States. But the way we got that as our symbol is actually pretty interesting. So after they signed the Declaration of Independence, saying we're not British anymore, we now belong to ourselves. Ben Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, and John Adams. You guys heard those names before in a history class? Those are some of the founding fathers. They were given the job of designing the new seal of the nation, and they had to come up with the symbol. Now, they kept coming up with ideas, and Congress kept rejecting it. No, we don't like that. No, we don't like that. So finally, the Thomas Jefferson, Ben Franklin, and John Adams gave the job to somebody else. They said to Charles Thompson, the Secretary of Congress, all right, you do it. We're tired of being rejected. You do it. So he looked at other designs and he saw one that had an eagle on it that had been designed by a Pennsylvania lawyer. Now the eagle was a small white eagle, so he wanted something a little more majestic looking than this small eagle. So he swapped it out with the bald eagle, and they officially accepted that in 1782. It was officially accepted as the symbol of the United States. Now, you may have heard somewhere that Ben Franklin wanted the wild turkey. Anybody heard that Ben wanted a turkey to be the symbol? There's actually no evidence. That's just a rumor. Maybe he did, but we don't have any evidence to support that. We do know, though, that he didn't like the bald eagle. He wrote a letter to his daughter when he said that he wished they hadn't chosen the bald eagle. He called it a bird of bad moral character and a rank coward because it tended to steal prey from other birds. And he didn't think that was an acceptable symbol for the new country. Now, he wasn't the only one who was opposed to the eagle, but once they finally accepted it as the national symbol, everybody stopped arguing, and it became common. Now that's what we picture. Now they're usually bigger than other birds of prey. There are some vultures who are larger than eagles, but most eagles are bigger than the other birds of prey. So you can see here, that's a little tiny one right there. That's the Steller's. Sorry, that is the little eagle. That little one here. This is called the little eagle, and this one is the Steller's sea eagle. So this one has a wingspan from here to here of up to 8 feet. So if you take a look at a doorway in your home, the doorways are usually about 6 feet high. Many of your ceilings will be 8 feet high. That's about what the wingspan is. Pretty big. Another thing that's interesting about birds of prey, they have excellent eyesight. It's estimated that their eyesight is up to 8 times better than ours. That means they can see a really long way to find their prey. And their eyes are huge compared to the rest of their body. So their eyes take up about half of their head. So picture your head Imagine if your eyes, we'd have eyes this big. That'd be a little bit scary, I think. Eagles weigh about 10 pounds, but their eyes are about the same size ours are. So you weigh a lot more than 10 pounds. That gives you an idea. And look at the way the eyes are kind of angled away. So your eyes face straight forward. And that gives you really good depth perception. But we have kind of a narrow range. If you take your fingers back here, wiggle your fingers, take them back where you can't see them, and wiggle them and bring them up and stop when you can see them. You see that it really is almost straight out from your head. Well, an eagle, because of the fact that their eyes are a little bit on the side of their head like that, angled away from the center, look at the field of view here that an eagle has. If you had eyes like an eagle, you couldn't get your hands back far enough that you couldn't see them. Bastion.
Somebody told me that like their eyes are like they're like if you had this if you had the size of an eagle's eyes, like it wouldn't it be like golf balls? Like
It'd be bigger than that. They're about half of their head. So it'd
oh
be more like a grapefruit.
wow.
Yeah, picture grapefruit size. We'd be real alien looking, wouldn't we? They can also see more color than we can see. So humans can see 3 basic colors, red, blue, and green. And then we see a mixture of those different colors. But eagles can see 5. So when we start talking about human biology in the second half of the year in Life Science 2, we'll learn that we've got detectors in the back of our eye that detect 3 different colors. Eagles have detectors for 5. That lets them see markings and color patterns that we can't even see. They're invisible to us. That helps them, of course, to find their prey a lot more easily. And they have normal eyelids that close, but they also have what's called a nictitating membrane. Anybody know what that is? What is a nictitating membrane called? Lydia.
It's like a second eye that they can close, or like a
It's a
second
second
eyelid.
Yeah, it's like a second inner eyelid that they can close. So they close it to protect their eyes while their main eyelid is open. And they can even fly with that nictitating membrane closed because it's clear. They can see through it. So they can close their eyelids to protect it without affecting their vision at all. That's called a nictitating membrane. And this little picture here shows you it closing. It doesn't look real clear in the picture, but it is. That eagle can see right through that nictitating membrane. Pretty cool. Keeps it closed, or keeps it clean. Also, let's look at some of the facial features of this eagle. So look at the maxilla, find the maxilla and the mandible right there. Now you have them too. Anybody know what your maxilla is? Wait a minute, I don't have a beak. That's right, you don't have a beak, but you do have a maxilla. Your maxilla is the bone right here that your top teeth go into. So it goes from here to here on the inside. That is your maxilla. And then how about mandible? What's your mandible? Yeah, your chin. Your lower jaw is your mandible. Your mandible is the only freely movable bone in your skull. You move that one, none of the rest of them can you move. Remember also this supraorbital ridge. You can use this supraorbital ridge, which is the same as your eyebrow bone, the bone right under your eyebrow. You can tell the difference between male and female eagles by this supraorbital ridge. And of course, you can't talk about eagles without talking about these talons. Look how the size compares to a human hand. These are very, very sharp. So they have talons. They also, if you notice here, they don't have any feathers on their feet. So bald eagles prefer to eat fish. That's what they would rather do. They would rather eat fish. Oh wait, Bastion says here, unless you can wiggle your ear, you're still not moving a bone. When you wiggle your ear, you're not moving a bone. Yeah, the ears are made of cartilage. So you're moving the cartilage, and you have some people
they're
have
attached to bones. I don't know. Well, they're
yeah, it is the only freely movable bone that is under conscious control in your head. Had a falcon on your arm before, their claws would contain. Yeah, definitely, definitely. So like I said, bald eagles eat mostly fish. Sometimes they'll eat other birds if they have to. They don't really like to eat mammals, so that's kind of rare for them to eat a mammal. Their food of choice is a fish. So how do you think feathers might be a problem for a bird that catches fish? Think about it. If it had feathers on its feet, how might that be a problem for it? Benya.
They wouldn't be able to swoop into the water as fast because the feathers might slow them down.
Yep, feathers would increase what we call drag. Oh, sorry, Abigail. You want to talk, Abigail? Okay, you got the answer there. Yeah. So feathers would drag in the water and that would slow them down. So they don't have feathers. Instead, they've got this real tough scales on the outside here of their feet. So they've got 4 very muscular toes, and they've got powerful muscles in their wings right here. In their legs right here that are strong enough to let them carry a really large fish as they're flying up through the air. They also have pretty strong muscles that contract, that can clamp down. So look at the shape of the claws, how if you got 3 that stick out the front here and 1 that stick out the back, that lets them grab. So they've got their prey and they can grab that prey like that. And that helps them. A lot of times the prey dies. Think about being a fish and it being impaled with those sharp claws. A lot of times those claws will pierce the vital organs of their prey, of the fish, and it kills the fish instantly. So let's see here. I'm missing, if you guys could hold your conversation to questions, because I think I'm missing questions here. Why is everyone holding raptors? Not sure what that means. All right, so eagles are at the top of the food chain. Anybody remember what we call an animal at the top of the food chain? Evie. I didn't hear you, Evie.
The primary.
So primary means first. So a primary consumer is the one that eats the producer. It eats the first. Then there's secondary consumers that eat the primary one. Then in most food webs, there's going to be a tertiary consumer. The one at the very top, Abigail.
Apex predator?
Yeah, the one at the very top we usually call an apex predator. Humans are apex predators. There really isn't anything that preys on us. Now, that doesn't mean that the eagle can't be taken by something. It can. The same way we can be killed by other animals. But apex predators are ones that are at the top of the food chain. And they tend to nest pretty high up in high cliffs or up in tall trees. Now, I'm going to show you a video here. This is a hawk, but I want you guys to see how birds of prey can catch fish, even fish that tend to fight back. So this one that we're going to be looking at is an osprey, and they're found on every continent except Antarctica. Now, the way they catch fish in the water is, I think, pretty spectacular. We're going to watch this, but keep in mind, the video says something about an involuntary locking mechanism that it can't let go. That's not true. Birds can let go anytime they want to. It's just sometimes the bird is so hungry that it will keep fighting and even be pulled down and drowned by a very strong fish. It could let go if it wanted to, but it still thinks that it can win. So they can lock on with their talons, but that's voluntary. They can let go if they want to. Still, it's a pretty cool video, so I want you to see it.
After hitting the water and grabbing the fish, the game still isn't over for the osprey and its quarry. He needs to get airborne again. His talons are equipped with adhesive scales and long curved claws for an unbreakable hold. But a big trout can match him weight for weight, and the instinct of the fish is to swim down. There are tales of weak and hungry ospreys being dragged to the bottom, unable to release the fish or lift off from the water successfully.
That fish is really pulling down, so this bird has to rest for a minute. Gathering its strength again.
But osprey wings are adapted to give maximum lift from the water. And this male is young and strong. This is a struggle he's destined to win.
All right. Does that look bald to you? No, they're called bald eagles because they've got that white feathers on the top of them, but they're definitely not bald. Now, anybody know what a bald eagle sounds like when it makes a sound, when it cries out? Have you heard that before? If you've ever seen one on TV, on a TV show, this is what the sound effect will be like. That's not actually an eagle. This is the sound a bald eagle really makes. Actually kind of pitiful, isn't it? So the Hollywood sound editors think that's an unimpressive sound. So when they want a piercing, earthy scream of an eagle, they'll give you the first one, and that is a red-tailed hawk. So they use the sound of a red-tailed hawk in movies and TV shows when they want to make the eagle sound really impressive. Now, like Ben Franklin said, bald eagles are thieves. We picture them flying over a lake and catching its fish like we saw in that video. And they do eat a lot of fish, but a lot of times they don't catch the fish themselves. They have perfected the art of stealing fish from other birds. So they will chase down an osprey or another bird until they drop their prey. And then they'll take the prey themselves. They also will scavenge. They'll eat out of dumpsters. They'll eat out of trash cans. They will sometimes even eat dead, decaying animals. And if they're really, really hungry, they might eat small mammals or crabs or amphibians, things like that. But they prefer to eat fish that some other animal has dropped. Now, another thing that you can use to identify a bald eagle is look at how flat those wings are. They usually soar. They glide through the air with their wings almost flat. Other birds of prey, their wings will be slightly up. And you only find bald eagles in North America. So they live across Canada, the US, and parts of northern Mexico. And that shows where they live. You can see them right there. Now, some of them migrate, but not all of them. Really depends on whether there's food available. If there's food available where they are, they might just stay where they are and not migrate. If there's not food, if they live somewhere where it's pretty cold, then they will go south for the winter and return to the breeding areas. They do mate for life, and they do a really good job of sharing responsibilities for feeding the babies. The male and the female both incubate the eggs, they both feed the young, and they live for a really long time. It's not uncommon for bald eagles to live up to 30 years out in the wild. Now, they mate for life, but that doesn't mean they stay together all year long. So a lot of times they'll separate to migrate, but then at the breeding time and the breeding location, they'll come back together. And when they meet each other, they haven't seen each other for months and months, and they actually have a little dance that they do in which they greet one another. You can almost see them saying, "Oh, I missed you. I'm so happy to see you." We call this dance that they do cartwheeling. They lock their talons and they spin through the air. There's no sound in this video, but here's two of them. "I missed you. Oh, I'm so happy to see you." Isn't that beautiful? Kind of like you do when you see somebody you haven't seen in a long time. You give them a big hug and kind of dance around together. Yeah, no hitting the lake. No. All right, now they build huge nests and they work together on that. Guys, try and imagine building that nest out of sticks and grass and feathers, using only your talons and your beak. And if it's a good nest, they'll come back to it year after year. And that's really nice for us. That means we can look at them. We can observe them year after year. Every year they'll put up to a foot or two of new material on that nest. They incubate their eggs. They usually have 2 eggs. Sometimes they can have 1 or 3, and those eggs incubate for about a month. And during that time, and for up to 2 weeks after the eggs are hatched, at least one parent is with the baby almost all the time. Now, after the egg hatches, they have to, guys, hold your conversation, if you will, okay? Let's not keep chatting. After the egg is hatched, the parents have to feed it. So you can lay a fish right beside that baby and it wouldn't eat it because it doesn't know how. The parent has to tear a chunk off the fish and put it right in the baby's mouth for up to about 3 to 6 weeks. And then they start pecking with food. And they fly. They take their first flight at about 3 months of age, and then not long after that, they fly away. And I said that males are usually smaller than females, usually about 25% smaller than females. And yeah, I want you guys to watch this pretty cool video that shows how their flight muscles are put together.
Hundreds of muscles, tendons, and ligaments power a diverse range of wing movements. The centerpieces of this system are the flight muscles. Pectoralis major, and beneath it, supracoracoideus. Together, they form the engines of avian flight. When the pectoral muscles contract, they pull the humerus bone in each wing down, creating thrust and lift. In immediate response, the supracoracoideus, connected by a tendon to the top of the humerus, works like a pulley to lift the wing every time the muscle contracts.
This is another terrific design because this pulley system eliminates the need for a large, heavy muscle above the shoulder to lift the wing back up. Instead, the flight muscles are all below the wings, where they help create a compact center of gravity that really stabilizes the bird's body in the air.
Your muscles that lift your arms back are on your back, but by having it on the front, it gives a bird a much more compact center of gravity. Okay, so bald eagles are not on the endangered species list anymore. They were taken off of that, but they are still protected. We have a lot more eagles now than we did before that that ban was put in place. But it's still, because they're protected, it's still illegal to own a bald eagle feather. So if you find one out in the woods, you have to leave it. You're not allowed to own it. And of course, you can't bother nests or eggs either. All right, so I'm going to jump right to our case study because we're running a little bit low on time here. So there are these cameras around the world that you can watch animals. One of them that I really love to watch is the bald eagle cam, where you can see them having their babies. You can see them laying the eggs. You can see them then turning the eggs to keep them warm, to keep them from sticking inside the egg. And I was watching this one a couple of years ago, and there was a situation where one of the eagle cams caught a young pair of parents. The mother had had one set of babies before, and the father, this was his first. So they had 2 babies, and we were watching as they raised these 2 babies. Well, one of the babies got too close to the edge of the nest and fell off and died. So they were left with just one baby, and people on the internet named him Harmon. So Harmon was the only one that was left. But when Harmon was just about 3 weeks old, he got tangled up in the nesting material that was used. So for 2 days, people on the internet were watching this eagle cam as he struggled to get himself free. So take a look at this.
Well, it's been an unbelievable moment in time here at Minnesota Bound. We are a little television production company in Minneapolis, and each spring we put a webcam way up in a tree on an eagle's nest, and we kind of watch life unfold up there. We've got a pile of viewers all over the United States who will watch for hours on end. This year, Mom and Dad gave birth to 2 baby eagles. Pretty amazing stuff to watch. But earlier this week, a terrible, terrible moment. One of the baby eagles named Kirby snuck up a little too close to the edge of the nest and actually fell out. He tumbled 75 feet and didn't survive the fall. People were pretty twisted up after watching that, you can imagine. Well, okay, we take a couple of days. Emotionally, we kind of get things in check. And then our email and our phone starts ringing. This is what happened. The surviving eaglet, his name is Harmon. There he is right there. People start calling us and saying, something's not right. It looks like he's tangled up in some string or maybe a piece of fishing line, maybe has a talon kind of stuck in a branch in the net, whatever. He's struggling. So we monitored overnight, and by this morning, Harmon was starting to get worse. His condition was really starting to drop.
What do you guys think they should do? What do you think should be done? Evie.
Someone could even try and go over and like try and get him free.
Okay.
So it doesn't get worse.
Yep. Anybody have a different view? Abigail? No, that's what you, anybody think that we should just leave him alone? So there is a rule of thumb that wildlife conservationists follow. The rule of thumb is, if human activity caused an animal to become injured or orphaned, we may intervene. If it's not, if it's something that happened naturally, then we don't. What do you think of that? If we intervene now, we're not following that rule of thumb, are we? But Harmon's likely going to die if we don't intervene. So let's see what happened.
So we debated and made a tough decision. We decided to intervene and try a rescue.
All right, so you knew that was what they were going to do. I wasn't going to show you a case study where they just let the baby die, right? All right, now they decided that they were going to try to intervene and rescue Harmon. What do you think they tried to do? What was their plan? Benya.
Just go up there and try to untangle him.
Yep. Go up and try to untangle. Anybody else? Cora?
They could wait till the parents fly away to like get food, and then they go up with like these gloves, so if the parents do come back, they won't attack them. And then they try to cut the baby out.
Yep, try to free the baby from the tangling. Yep. Jaslyn.
I've seen people have attempted to send kind of like something similar to like a drone or some kind of device up there instead of a human that can help untangle it.
Yep, that's a possibility too. All right, let's see what they did.
Usually I have to climb it. It's a lot more work.
Pretty amazing what our cameras captured. After quick calls to the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources and the University of Minnesota's Raptor Center, we got an emergency permit to climb and go up into the eagle's nest. Now, climber Jim Musil volunteered to get up there and try and rescue Harmon. Now, while this whole thing went down, get this, more than 9,000 viewers online sat glued to their computers for about 2 hours as Jim made his way up into the tree. Turns out Harmon somehow got his talons tangled in a few branches. After pulling them free and doing a quick checkup, Jim decided Harmon might need treatment. So Harmon got a free ride in this yellow bag all the way down to the ground, and then another checkup before heading to the university's Raptor Center.
It's okay. You know, he's going to get that kind of world-class care. Get him some food and get him warm and clean and dry so that he can truly rest. Because in distress, you're never resting. You're in distress. And that's going to do worlds for him. The most important place for this kid by far is there.
So the rescuer says the most important place is there. What he meant by that was that the most important place for Harmon was to get him back into the nest. Why? What can he get there that he can't get anywhere else? Evie.
He can get special care.
Yep,
Because
from who?
he can get like special care from people who like specialize in taking care of animals, because if he just stays there, then he can stay hurt.
Right, right. So when they take him back to the center and take care of him, he'll get that special care from the people at the thing. What kind of special care can he get in the nest? That's what they want to do. They want to get him back into the nest. Why? Ruby?
Well, I think that like if they took him to the center, he would probably be like in a lot of distress, and that wouldn't be good for him. And it would make him like he might like get sick or something.
If he stayed there too long, for sure, that would happen. Yeah. All right, Madison.
In the nest, he can get care from his parents.
Yeah. His parents are in the nest. His parents are not at the center. So what they're going to do is they're going to take him to the center. They're going to clean him up. They're going to get him some food. They're going to let him sleep, and then they're going to bring him back and put him back into the nest, because the best place for him is in the wild, in the nest with his parents, like a normal wild bird. All right. So
Because if we don't get him there, you have issues of proper development. You have issues of possible imprinting. You have situations that young birds develop that are difficult to deal with in captivity. So the most important thing is return to the nest, return to mom and dad, because they know best.
Now, Harmon's story has become one of national interest. Heck, today we had more than 85,000 hits on the webcam. That's today alone. And of course, now we're getting piles of questions. The big one, will Harmon survive this ordeal? Also, will he go back in the nest? If so, when? And if he goes back, will mom and dad actually accept him back in the nest?
So Harmon did really well at the center. He recovered. He wasn't there for very long. He was only there for a few hours, and he rested. They got him some food. They cleaned him up, and they decided to put him back in the nest later in the evening on that same day. Now, they also put some fish heads and some fish tails in the nest to attract the parents, to try to give them something to feed Harmon when they came back. But nobody knew if those two young parents were going to return. Most of the time, if parents are going to return to a nest, it'll be within the first 2 days, but they don't always. So they weren't sure. So they put Harmon in at night. It got dark. Nobody could see. We didn't know what was going to happen. Morning came, and little Harmon was still alive, but he was still alone. His parents hadn't come back. So the clock ticked all day long. Cameras and people all over the world were watching, but the parents didn't come back. But there was hope, because we could see the parents in the area. We could see them flying around the area watching. Then, just after 7 o'clock that night, this is what happened. Dad came back. And you know it's Dad because of the ridge above his eyes. It is not as deep as Mom's. That supraorbital ridge. Look at Harmon yelling, "Dad, come on, feed me." Yeah, I'm not sure though. Something's happened. Something isn't right. Dad's got to be sure. But Harmon gets closer. Come on, Dad. There's a fish head right here. Feed me. Dad sees the fish head. It was 24 hours with no food. It's hungry. But Dad eats the first bite. Come on, that's mine. feeding the baby. Now look who shows up. Mom comes in, takes the food right out of Dad's mouth and says, I'll feed him. So we all knew at this point, Marvin's going to be fine. The parents are going to continue to feed him, and they did. They continued to feed him. They took good care of him until he was about 6 weeks old. He started eating his own food, and when he was about 3 months old, he left the nest. He flew off to begin his own life. So it was a happy ending for everyone. Yeah, happy ending. All right. You guys think they did the right thing to help Harmon? Yeah. Anybody not think they did the right thing? What, Bastion?
I think they did the right thing.
Yeah.
Hey,
it was a
also,
happy ending,
what
so.
website is this?
This is called Minnesota Bound. The one I really like to watch is called Decorah Eagles. But there's a lot. If you just go online and look up Eagle Cam, there's a lot of them. Now they're not nesting now. They'll start building their nests in November, and then they'll lay their eggs like in January or February, and the babies will hatch then in like around March.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool to watch.
Wait, so what's the one that you liked the most? What was it
I
called
like
again?
Decorah Eagles.
Oh, yeah,
I
let
don't
me.
know why. Probably it's the first one that I started
Decorah
watching.
Eagle Cam.
Decorah, Decorah Eagles.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm gonna watch a little bit of this.
Yeah, they're kind of fun.
I'm ready to watch some more of people.
All right. You guys have a great week.
Okay, bye.
Thanks for coming.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.